There has been a tremendous backlash among some of the president's MAGA supporters about the DOJ's decision not to release the Jeffrey Epstein files, despite a dramatic buildup, on grounds that there is no list of the pedophile's clients and that he didn't commit did commit suicide, in prison. 6 years ago, Trump ally Laura Loomer demanded that Attorney General Pam Bondi resign.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
We knew Epstein didn't keep a list of people he was blackmailing in his diary, but there should be case files, mountains of them, mountains of paperwork going back decades. Where'd that go?
And it seems that the FBI and other government agencies care more about managing the narrative than actually just revealing the information that needs to be revealed.
Joining us now, Sarah Bedford, investigations editor of the Washington Examiner. And in Colorado, Lucy Caldwell, a board member at Renew America. Sarah, the refusal to release anything from Jeffrey Epstein has really struck a nerve, deep nerve, among many Trump supporters, many people in the MAGA movement who say they feel betrayed. Why?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that this is a huge PR disaster for the Trump administration. There's no way for them to spin their way out of this. I think the Epstein issue had, for a lot of MAGA types, became a proxy for whether this DOJ was going to live up to their very high expectations. And obviously, Bongino, Patel, everyone involved in this sort of failed on that. I don't think they could have scripted a better way to keep the conspiracy theories alive than the way they handled it, promising that a lot of information was going to come and then sort of backtracking without any real explanation. I think this is only going to add fuel to the conspiracies around Epstein.
Lucy, is the big buildup by Pam Bondi and others a major part of the reason? I mean, this is, you would think it'd be a two-day story, but there's so much anger about this. Why is it such a letdown for the MAGA crowd?
Well, I spend a lot of time thinking about who MAGA base voters are. And one of the things that's really interesting, look, many people treat MAGA like it's a monolith, and it's certainly not. There are people who come to MAGA for a lot of different reasons, whether it's MAHA or it's concern over immigration. There are a lot of different issues. But they all are and report being super concerned about sex trafficking, super concerned about the issues around the Epstein specter, right? Why? Because they have been conditioned by Trump and by MAGA for years to believe whatever issue you came in caring about into this movement, this is a thing of grave concern. So they've been conditioned for years on this, and now they're being told nothing to see here. And if you question this at all, even though you have supposedly been part of the free-thinking crew that's truth-seeking and we're your truth seekers, now you're the morons. And it's especially interesting to see the betrayal of right-wing media, of folks who feel like they perhaps have given the benefit of the doubt to people like Pam Bondi, to people like Donald Trump over the years, because they think that the left-wing media, so-called, is corrupt. And now they're seeing, how is this different from what they're criticizing? I think this is a turning point, Howie.
Well, Pam Bondi's not going anywhere. Trump did a long post saying she was doing a fantastic job. But let's look at, just for example, last February, Trump lawyer Alina Habba talking about the Epstein case.
In Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Well, Sarah, this is all there was a lot of like, oh, this is going to be really shocking, and that raised expectations that have now been dashed.
Right. So I think it's important to say that so far the Trump DOJ operationally seems to be doing a decent job, as well as can be expected for a bunch of people who came into this without the institutional experience of having worked in the federal government before. But that being said, yeah, this is an enormous PR disaster for the Trump administration. They did not have to go out there and hype the information. The public fascination with it, I would argue, goes beyond just MAGA. I think it's really captured the fascination of people writ large, left, right, and center. The way this case has been handled from the time in 2006 when Jeffrey Epstein was first indicted in Florida to the time he died in custody, and a series of unfortunate coincidences unfolded. The guards were asleep, the camera malfunctioned. It was just the perfect storm of details to create conspiracy theories that I do not think are confined to the right.
Well, Lucy Cash Patel, now FBI director, but before he joined government, he said, put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up. We need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything. And so it just seems to me, and we saw some of the clips, that yes, MAGA is a broad movement, but there's a great reluctance to let go of this. There's even talk it'll affect the midterm elections. I'm not so sure that part is true. Lucy.
Well, it may or may not affect the midterm elections, but it certainly reflects a fracture point. And as I said, I do think that this is a turning point. Whether or not this was a cover-up, now there's almost like a cover-up of a cover-up going on. And Pam Bondi and others are insulting the intelligence of their base. When Pam Bondi, who's the attorney general, says something like, oh, well, yes, the file was on my desk. I didn't know what was in it. I had to go review it, as though she's some junior staff attorney who's like doing doc review for the first time. That insults the intelligence of the American people, and especially of Trump supporters who have been believing them. I would say to them, don't feel that you have to be bound to these people anymore because they are lying to you. Yes, I agree. No question. I don't know that Pam Bondi's not going anywhere, but I agree that this all leads back to Trump, and she and others, Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, they are simply carrying out the wishes of Donald Trump. Why he wants it to be this way, don't know, but it certainly is not a good look. And I agree with Sarah, it's a PR disaster.
Well, I'm not buying into this, but there seems to be, especially since Elon Musk made an issue of this, that there must be some kind of cover-up. And I think that's why we're seeing it's not the left-wing media. It is Trump's own base or part of Trump's base. All right.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.